Hello, podcast fam. I am thrilled to share some exciting news. My book, So Grow Lead, is officially live on Amazon. This book is more than just my story of starting a nonprofit and building a peanut butter factory in Malawi. So trust me, the ups and downs of that journey are worth the read. It's also packed with practical strategies to help nonprofit leaders like you tackle challenges with clarity, courage, and a whole lot of heart. If you've ever wondered how to turn your vision into reality, navigate the inevitable hurdles, and build something meaningful, whether in your organization or in your own life, this book is for you. I'd be so grateful for your support in spreading the word. Grab your copy of So Grow Lead in the show notes and on Amazon today. Let's keep sowing seeds of impact together. Welcome to the Lead with Heart podcast, which is dedicated to nonprofit leaders who are passionate about making a difference. I'm your host, Haley Cooper, and I'm thrilled to have you join us on a journey of growth, inspiration, and transformation. At Lead with Heart, we believe that leading with heart means embracing empathy, compassion, and authenticity in every aspect of our work. It's about putting people first, fostering genuine connections, and creating a positive impact that goes beyond numbers and metrics. In the nonprofit world, it can often feel like we're carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. The challenges are immense, and the road can be lonely. But here, you're not alone. This podcast is a community where we support each other, share our stories, and learn together. Each episode will dive into personal and professional development topics tailored specifically for nonprofit leaders. From innovative fundraising strategies and effective team management to self-care practices and leadership insights, we're here to provide you with practical strategies that you can apply to your life and work. My goal is to empower you, elevate your leadership, and engage your heart in all that you do. I want to help you navigate the unique challenges of the nonprofit sector with confidence and resilience, so you can continue to create meaningful change in the world. So whether you're driving to a meeting, taking a break, or winding down for the day, tune in and join us on this journey. Together, we'll discover what it truly means to lead with heart. Thank you for being here. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Lead with Heart podcast. This is your host, Haley Cooper, and I am so excited to have Megan on the podcast today. She is truly doing wonderful work in the world, and she's just an amazing human that you just have to know. So you're going to get to know a little bit more about her and her work today. And Megan is a seasoned fundraising consultant and mindfulness coach with 17 years of experience in the nonprofit sector. She understands the unique pressures of nonprofit work firsthand, having burned out a decade ago. Since then, she's dedicated her career to helping changemakers like you listeners navigate the stress and exhaustion that can come with this work. She offers one-on-one coaching, speaking engagements, and live events on Insight Timer, where she offers practical tools rooted in mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and self-compassion. And you know that I love all of these topics. So welcome to the podcast, Megan.
Thanks, Haley. So excited to be here with you.
So as I mentioned, and I know that you are pretty open about your experience with burnout. So can we start there? Can you share a bit about what that journey was like for you and how it led you to integrate mindfulness into your work?
Sure. As you mentioned in your kind opener, I burned out in my nonprofit job about 10 years ago. And at the time, I was working as a project manager and was experiencing a heightened level of stress, being responsible for a team who was undergoing restructuring outside of their control. And I had the classic symptoms of burnout. So burnout looks different for every person. And for me, I remember feeling super exhausted all the time. I would come home from my job and really vent a lot to my husband as a coping mechanism and felt pretty cynical, like I couldn't really make a difference in the situation. And I just didn't feel like I could ever do a good enough job. And those are basically the three primary signs of burnout as defined by the Maslow burnout inventory. And there were a lot of health concerns that I had at the time that I was really unaware were correlated with stress. So I had gastrointestinal issues. I had a chronic illness that doctors would just tell me, take antibiotics. I was taking so many antibiotics for this issue. Teeth grinding. I still wear what do they call them, like the jaw teeth protectors at night. Mm-hmm. I was sleeping terribly and had a story that the women in my family just sleep badly. And now I'm aware of how all of those symptoms were really my body screaming out for me to pay attention to it. And I didn't have my mindfulness tools or meditation practice at that time. And I've grown a lot in these past 10 years to be able to identify the warning signs of stress in my body. I didn't have the knowledge at the time how to identify my emotions or feel the sensations in my body as emotions. So I think I contributed a lot to my own burnout. And I want to be really clear that burnout is nobody's fault. And there are so many systemic causes for burnout beyond our control. It's also, I think, really important to just say that, like any health disparity, people of color and other individuals that are marginalized by society are disproportionately affected by burnout. The stressors of microaggressions and systemic injustice and daily oppression exacerbate that stress, which compounds and builds up into burnout. And so, that's a little bit about my experience. And it wasn't until about 4 years later, when I was going through a divorce, that I discovered my mindfulness coach and therapist, who introduced me to the skill of meditating every day for 10 minutes a day in the morning and naming my emotions, practice called Name It to Tame It, and all these little check-ins of pause that allowed me the chance to really wake up and notice, okay, my neck and shoulders are really tense and I haven't had any water for the past hour and it's time to take a break. So I really learned a lot of life-changing skills that I am so grateful for through that experience.
Yeah, I think that's great. And thank you so much for sharing your story and being so open and honest about your experience. And I think a lot of listeners who work in nonprofits can probably relate or feel less alone. So I appreciate your courage and bravery in not only speaking up about your own experience, but also about the work that you have found to be meaningful in combating burnout. And if someone is listening to this and they're like, burnout, like, sure, it's a buzzword, like I've heard it, but how would they know? What are some of the early warning signs of burnout that nonprofit professionals should be aware of?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I do think burnout is a misunderstood term. And I'm not about being like the language police. And I think everybody can use it like in their own way. But we often hear folks, and I'm sure I'm one of them, who have said, oh, I'm so burned out, as if it were like a flu that they just woke up with that day. And so I think it's just important to differentiate between the signs of burnout and then just stress, which is a natural daily occurrence. So I think it's helpful, if we want to understand what the early warning signs of burnout is to dig into how to identify if you're stressed. And again, it's manifests differently for everyone. Stress is a response to threat, and that could be real or imagined. And it is not necessarily a bad thing, because if we didn't have stress, then we wouldn't be able to see that car and jump out of the way, for example. So our brains and bodies have evolved to constantly be searching for threats and to keep us safe. And I think that something that I didn't know when I was burning out was, one, that I can actually observe my thoughts and decide whether or not they're true. I just thought that all the thoughts I was walking around with, the anxious looping patterns of blaming myself and other people, I really identified with them as, this is just who I am. I'm a judgy person. And I didn't know about mindfulness, which is, if you're not familiar with mindfulness, it means being aware or paying attention. So paying attention allows you to wake up and to notice these unconscious ways of reacting to the world that can get in our own way and cause ourselves and each other's harm. So this is a big question, I'm realizing. And I think to answer your question around the early warning signs of stress, it's like something I love doing as a coach is helping people understand the different channels of awareness that we can practice. And oftentimes in our society, and certainly how I was raised, it is the channel of language and thought. And so creating stories about what's happening, making meaning, trying to figure it out in our head. And being in situations of stress, I've learned there's so many other ways to process than just thinking. So sensing into the body is key. As I mentioned before, I had a friend, Catherine Lacefield, who said that with burnout, if we want to prevent it, it's like checking in on a stew that we're making and stirring the pot and making sure that we're paying attention to it. And that way it won't burn up because we're aware of what's happening and we're taking action. So in terms of body sensations, those could be ones, like I mentioned, of tightness. So another thing I didn't know is that stress manifests as sensation in the body. It's not just these painful thoughts and stories, it's actual physical tension because we're bracing to not get attacked by the lion.
Yeah.
And so when we are able to notice that we have these sensations in our body, we can choose to pause and breathe and turn toward them. And that can allow them to soften and release. So emotions are another channel of awareness that I know you're all about. So cynicism is a key one. So when we start saying things like, I just won't care anymore, it doesn't really matter. Again, trying to think our way out of these feelings of stress by checking out. Apathy. It can also be like irritability and noticing like, oh, I'm snapping at my family or coworkers and I don't have that access to my usual compassionate, patient self. So there's a lot of ways to see burnout, and the emotional exhaustion is the key one. So you just feel completely drained and you might be sleeping terribly and have to use sleeping pills like I was, or maybe you are sleeping okay and you still feel exhausted because I think we often equate, or at least I did, not to use the royal we. I used to think that being rested was all about sleep. And what I've learned is that our physical energy, our emotional energy really gets burned up by our thought patterns and the way that we are relating to ourselves in a negative way. And again, as I say this, I really want to emphasize, if you are feeling like part of you is burned out, please try to be kind to yourself and compassionate, because even though there are many things we can do to manage stress, we also are dealing with life or death situations. Working in nonprofit, many of us are in chaotic cultures where we're being underpaid and overworked and not getting support. And so it's this combination of so many factors. So my recommendation would be to see a doctor to get diagnosed, because it is a medical condition and there may be ways that you can restore your energy, and it's not something to go at alone. And also would invite you to seek out community in whatever form feels comfortable for you, because you're not alone. And this burnout affects at least 50% of nonprofit professionals at some point. In research that my friend Tasha Van Vlack did with the nonprofit Hive, it was like 200 people filled out this survey, and it was like 77% have experienced total burnout. So you're not alone, and reach out to me if you want to talk.
Yeah, thank you so much for walking us through that. And I think I just want to emphasize, like what you said, one, you're not alone. And two, you have to go about it with compassion, because I think a lot of times when we have those thoughts or those stories, or if we're not motivated or those signs of burnout, we start to get into that shame negative cycle. And I think, like you said, it's just important to be aware without judgment and with compassion, and not, it's easier said than done, obviously, because when we're in those states, like it's literally how we're wired to react, right? And when we're in those high states of stress, like our amygdala takes over our prefrontal cortex. We can't think logically. And it's just how our brain reaches for those strategies to try to cope with the world around us. And so I think it's important to know you're not alone, and to try to show yourself some compassion. I know that can be hard to do.
Yes. We're not taught how to give ourselves compassion or work with our emotions when we grow up in school.
Mm-hmm.
Getting fired up the other day, like walking around my house thinking about how it's wild that we learn all kinds of facts and myths in school that really don't matter. And we don't learn how to use our own brain, or how to listen to our bodies, or rest, or understand that 80% of our thoughts on average are negative. And so it's not like who you are. It's a natural function, as you said, of being human. And there are ways that we can observe those negative thoughts, those feelings of shame, and take a compassionate approach. So self-compassion is something that I feel really passionate about sharing as a skill that you can actually build. And there are methods, there are self-compassion meditations that you can do. You can simply place your hand on your heart, and that is a mind-body connection practice that biologically we respond to as humans, and it allows us to calm ourselves. So the good news, my friends, is that there are so many ways that you can learn to support yourself, and recovering from burnout is completely possible. It's not a quick fix solution or something that happens overnight, and it is possible. And there are so many ways that we can experiment with to see what works for each of us to help prevent it and really stay committed to doing this social justice work.
Yeah, I love that perspective. And you talk a lot about the importance of, and I do as well on this podcast, about building that supportive and inclusive nonprofit culture. So, do you have any practical strategies or proactive steps that nonprofit organizations can utilize to help build you up as an individual and also that team dynamic?
Yes. I love talking about how to incorporate mindfulness into your culture to be more inclusive and equitable. And the first practice that I would recommend is called Minute to Arrive. And this is a practice that I did just the other day at the beginning of a board meeting that I presented to. And it's also something that I've done on teams and has had a ripple effect on many nonprofits that I've worked with. So Minute to Arrive is an acknowledgement that we are often in these back-to-back meetings in a hybrid work culture, and folks are human beings and we're not robots. We are jumping from task to task without allowing a pause. And that is detrimental to the whole purpose of gathering, to be able to create something together or solve a problem. So it's giving 1 minute to breathe at the beginning of a meeting. And that can look as simple as we all gather to chat a little bit. Hey, do we want to do a minute to arrive? Get agreement from folks and then set a 1 minute timer. If you're on camera, you can all go off camera to be a little more comfortable, or you can do this practice in person, and recommend offering it as an optional invitation. When I did this at a board meeting the other day, I was very aware that probably a lot of people might think this was coming out of left field or not be used to doing something like this in the workplace. So really like to offer it with an open hand and just say, hey, I would love us to allow ourselves a chance to get present, and feel free to close your eyes or not and do whatever is of service to you in this minute. So ideally, we would love for everyone, I would love for everyone to take a moment to really breathe and look away from the camera and take some breaths and regulate their emotions and nervous system. And I also recognize neurodiversity in the workplace and the fact that some folks may not feel comfortable with silence or closing their eyes, or some folks may think that it is religious, even though it's really a breathing practice. So I find that when I offer this practice, though, whether someone's new to it or not, I have not gotten anybody saying, well, that was a waste of time. I wish we would have just gotten right into the meeting. So it's what I love about this practice is that it's very experiential. So unlike me talking a lot about the benefits of mindfulness and why we want to practice this in the workplace to honor neurodiversity and center relationship, people just experience it. And I have gotten so much love for this practice. People are, I would say the number one thing that I hear around Minute to Arrive is that it helps people experience slowing down for 1 minute and helps them see that it actually doesn't take that much time to refresh yourself and to reset. Oftentimes, I think we in our culture have this all or nothing mentality and think of like meditation as something that needs to be done for an hour, or like, why even do it? And so I really love like what I learned as a teacher through this program, Search Inside Yourself, micro practices. So minute to arrive is one, and I can share others, but I'll pause there, see what you think.
Yeah, I think that's great. And yeah, I love that it takes so much effort to want to sit and just pause. But I think starting, like you said, with those micro practices of it's just a minute to come together collectively, take a pause, do what you need to do so that you can show up to be your best self at the meeting. And I think just taking that minute is so important to co-creating that environment that you want to create in that room, and then obviously beyond that room.
Minute to arrive is really a starting point, and I've seen colleagues do it in the middle of a meeting, perhaps when they notice some tension or there's a lot of looping around the same thing and we feel a bit stuck. And so we might just invite folks, hey, why don't we pause and take 3 breaths? And it provides this sense to move from reacting to responding. And really, one conscious breath is all it can take to wake up and realize, oh, I'm in fear right now, and then choose to shift into love.
I love that. You also mentioned a little bit earlier about something that obviously I'm passionate about, but I would love to know your take on it, is name it to tame it. And I think that is such an important piece of mindfulness as well, because it incorporates that emotional piece. So what does name it to tame it look like in a practical sense? Imagine a fundraising partner that not only helps you raise more money, but also supports you in retaining your donors. A partner that helps you raise funds both online and on location so you can grow your impact faster. That's DonorBox, a comprehensive suite of tools, services, and resources that give fundraisers just like you a custom solution to tackle your unique challenges, helping you achieve the growth and sustainability your organization needs, helping you help others. Visit donorbox.org to learn more.
Yes. So have you seen Inside Out?
Yes. Such a great movie for anyone of all ages.
So let's start there with the 5 characters in Inside Out. They represent the 5 core emotions, and they are anger, sadness, joy, fear, and disgust. And name it to tame it is really that way of how you move from reacting in fear to responding with love. Because as you wisely mentioned earlier, our amygdala gets hijacked when we sense a threat and we can't think clearly, and we really feel like we're gonna die. If our boss sends us a last minute email being like, can we talk in 2 hours? Like, your brain really thinks you're gonna die. So you are regulating your nervous system by acknowledging, after first just pausing to breathe, you just scan through your body and notice, what am I feeling? And it's a muscle that we build through practice. I remember it not being easy for me, and it's okay if folks are not quite sure how to do it. Like anything, it takes some practice and investigating, but you'll start to notice that your emotions that you're feeling, they will show up in similar places for you. That was like mind-blowing for me to realize that anger for me often is tightness in my chest and neck and shoulder tightness as well, and shallow breathing. So your sensations are really a guide to what emotions are visiting you. And I think it's something my friend said the other day after she came to this mindfulness community that I lead on Insight Timer. I was talking about anxiety and how to work with it and soothe anxiety. And I shared how we want to say when we're naming the emotion, this is anxiety. Instead of, I am anxious. And it was really cool for me just to see how much of a light bulb that was for her, because how common is it for us to say, I am anxious, and to identify as just that is who I am forever. And of course, there is generalized anxiety disorder. And so I'm not wanting to minimize that these are also mental health conditions. And emotions manifest as these physical sensations that are moving through our body. And so name it to tame it is this ability to say, hey, fear, I see you. This is fear. This fear is visiting me, and can I feel it in my body? And I drop out of the story of drama of who said what or what I'm going to do to that person. And because that's natural, the mind is, again, trying to protect you and do its job. So noticing, okay, mind wanders, drop back into the feeling, allowing it to be there is key, which is also like very much not what most of us learned about Netflixing it away or grabbing my phone. So there's nothing wrong. We all have coping mechanisms. So again, like notice if you're feeling shame, or we all have them. We're human, right? But the last thing I'll say as I really nerd out on name it to tame it is that it's that piece of saying, like, I think of it as when we're in fear or flight or fight or fawn, people-pleasing behavior, all kind of these survival responses. We're like the kids on the bus who are screaming and we're out of control. And when we name those emotions, this is anxiety, this is fear. It doesn't have to be the 5 core ones. Anyone will do. That's moving us into the driver of the bus and allowing us to make a choice over where we're going to go. So going from the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex, the evolved, compassionate, curious, adult one. Yeah, name it to tame it was the first practice besides meditating daily that I started doing. And when I started doing this practice, I just really saw pretty quickly how much it helped. And when we start actually feeling our emotions and allowing them to be there, and meditation, which is spending time in stillness and noticing what's here, that allows us to feel everything in a more alive way. Mm-hmm. So I remember saying to my therapist, I'm going through a divorce, and yet I've never felt so alive. And it was a roller coaster of emotions, but when we're used to suppressing and denying and ignoring emotions, even the joy, they all become dull. And so feeling alive, yeah, it's so profound. I don't even have words. It's just that I'm not here to be calm all the time, which is, I think, a common misconception of mindfulness and meditation, is that it's meant to like have you be some zen, calm, chill, or toxically positive person. It's allowing you to feel all the emotions and express yourself fully.
Yeah, I think that's so beautiful. And I love that you talked about it's not just about being calm. I think I saw this on Instagram or something the other day of meditation isn't meant for you to not have thoughts. Because when you then have the thoughts, then you're like, well, I'm doing this wrong. But it's like just noticing your thoughts and what's coming through or the emotions that are arising. It's not that there's going to be an absence of it. It's just you're more aware of the presence of it.
Beautifully said. That's the number one myth of meditation, is that I can't meditate because I can't turn off my thoughts. I certainly felt that way. That's why I never meditated for 33 years of my life. And now I love sharing with folks who are interested that there's thousands of ways to practice meditation. And Jeff Warren is a teacher I love who says that if you say that you like meditating, it's essentially saying, I like exercise. So it's like you're choosing which meditation is best for what you need in that moment. And medicine and meditation have the same root for a reason. They're a toolkit that you can pull from. So when I was going through my divorce, I was pulling from the loving kindness and self-compassion toolkit to build a skill of being able to treat myself and my ex-husband with kindness when my brain wanted to not do that. And while I don't love advertising mindfulness as a productivity tool in itself, it really is. Because we can practice focused attention practices. We can practice open awareness practices where we're more aware of what's generally happening in the environment. So I encourage folks, if they're interested in trying meditation, to experiment with the different kinds. Some folks love a gratitude practice or a visualization. And so I really enjoy being a meditation concierge and like finding out what's going on for you and what is it that you're interested in cultivating, and then recommending something to try.
Hey there, podcast family. If you're like me and deeply committed to improving your leadership skills and fostering better connections with your team, I've got something truly amazing to share with you. I'm proud to introduce the EMC Masterclass, something I talk about often as a certified trainer. It's an incredible program developed by the renowned Dr. Lola Gershfeld, an organizational psychologist and corporate emotional connection expert. You might remember her from a podcast episode where she shared invaluable insights into the world of emotional connection. Dr. Gershfeld's EMC Leaders courses are designed for anyone working with people, whether you're a manager, supervisor, team leader, educator, coach, mentor, or a team member. This program is truly for everyone looking to enhance their communication and collaboration skills to raise more revenue for their mission. Now, let me tell you why the EMC Masterclass is a game changer. Dr. Gershfeld's groundbreaking emotional connection process has been integrated into top universities' curriculum and recognized by international organizations like ICF, HRCI, and SHRM. Humans are wired to seek emotional safety, and when we feel safe, we're more likely to take risks, share innovative ideas, and collaborate effectively. The EMC process is the catalyst for creating that emotional safety within your team. The virtual EMC Masterclass consists of 8 modules with 4 hours of expertly recorded material, 13 quizzes to reinforce your learning, and a workbook filled with activities for offline practice and something I still refer to daily. Ready to become an emotional connection master? Dr. Gershfeld is offering an exclusive detail for our podcast listeners. Use the code LEADWITHHEART to enjoy a generous 10% discount on the EMC Masterclass. Head over to emcleaders.com and enroll in the EMC Masterclass today. Yeah, can you talk a little bit more about Insight Timer and the community that you have built over there where people can learn from you about meditation and mindfulness and the different practices that you offer?
Yeah, I noticed my face just lit up and it started smiling when you talked about Insight Timer because I'm such a huge fan. This app is free, and if you're looking to start a practice, I would recommend giving it a try. There's plenty of apps out there. So see what works for you. Insight Timer is what got me into meditation about 7-ish years ago now. And you can go on there and say, I have 5 minutes to, and then select breathe, and it'll give you like breath work or meditate or sleep meditations, yoga. So it's really a wonderful app with thousands of teachers on there. And it's a dream come true that I'm now one of those teachers. And I offer, it's called Mindfulness Community for Change Makers. I've been doing it for maybe 8 months or so, twice a month. And it's a beautiful opportunity to connect in community. I'm on the screen. I'm teaching and guiding a meditation to release stress and anxiety. And it's also this wonderful community of people in the chat who have started to come back, and they're like saying hey to each other and recognizing each other and sharing their wisdom. So I really love being able to build community in spaces. I have had a mindfulness community for about 4 years through my nonprofit. And so it was a way for me to branch that out into the whole world. And it's a way that I really express, and it feels pretty magical to guide a meditation in an impromptu way and just see what comes through. And so I also have recorded meditations on there for soothing overwhelm, and ones that are 1 minute long that you can do it in a team meeting, or 5-minute somatic centering practice. So yeah, it's fantastic. And I really, really recommend it.
And like you said, it's free, and you can download it on your phone and have it with you in your pocket whenever you have at any instance of the day, right? Just pull it out instead of scrolling, which causes more anxiety. You can pull up the app and check out Megan.
Yes. I'm glad you mentioned the scrolling causing more anxiety. That's actually, if I can offer a tip around that with the phone.
Yeah, of course.
My friend actually said something really wise. My friend Jordan, who's also a mindfulness coach, we had a in-person meditation group the other day, and he was talking about how reaching for our phone has become our go-to way of dealing with any form of discomfort. And I do this all the time, right? It's not allowing us to actually, what am I feeling right now? We're in the elevator, we're feeling awkward, so we grab our phone. Mm-hmm. We're waiting for our friend, so we grab our phone. And so what would it be like if you instead took a breath and noticed, I'm bored, or I'm feeling insecure? So one of my favorite tips to offer folks if they're looking to build more of a mindful practice in the morning is to try, if it's possible, it may not be for everyone, not looking at your phone immediately as you wake up in the morning to check social media or email. I think it's Jay Shetty who has a video around, it's like you're inviting like 1,000 strangers into your brain. Do you actually want to do that? And I think it's very common, right? It seems entertaining in the moment. And so something to try out, if it feels appealing, is to just see what it's like to wait until after you meditate or after you do your walk. And meditation can be done in any moment. It's not just a close your eyes thing. So I just think being able to check in with my own thoughts and my own emotions and inner world is really key to setting up my day a lot more positive and peaceful. How about you? Is there something you like to do in your mornings?
Well, I like to exercise, but I haven't been I've listened to a few podcasts this week about sleep and hormones, and I am just convicted now to put my phone out of my room. I don't really need an alarm clock in the morning. My children wake me up, but just because there are like I do it and then I lay in bed for an extra 5 minutes and then I'm late to my group class. And so, yeah, I've been convicted this week to really prioritize my sleep and just overall health in the way that when you first look at your phone in the morning, it can mess up your circadian rhythm and it set you up the rest of the day to be tired or more anxious because you see that light and it's acting as if it's natural light. And so, and there's obviously a number of other things that could, looking at it first thing in the morning or setting it out of my room and not having it in there and I'm scrolling and then I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go to bed. Like I am definitely convicted. But yeah, in the morning right now, I generally wake up at 6 to work out and then I make everyone breakfast and then I read my Bible at the table while my kids are eating, do some journaling, and then I like to fit in meditation where I can. And I realize like these practices that I've cultivated, if I haven't been doing them, like my body craves them. They like tell me to sit down and they're like, you need to breathe for a few minutes or listen to a recorded meditation. And I'm like, okay, you can't deny it when it has that like strong pull for you, right?
Yes, I feel you. Movement is also really a key practice for me. And when I don't do it, I really notice it. And journaling as well. I've been journaling since I was about 10 years old. And I think that was my first mindfulness practice. Tennis was another one as a kid that really helped me to be present. And I didn't call it mindfulness then. And it really was pretty, I think that's when I think back around one of the reasons why I loved it so much is because I was so focused on the activity. It allowed me to drop out of my head and get into the present moment and be in my body rather than floating above it.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. Well, if someone is listening to this and they're like, okay, this is me. I want to do this mindfulness. I want to learn how to do the name to tame it. Do you have any other advice for someone that is listening to this episode?
Sure. I'd say follow your heart. You are your own best teacher, and your desire for change is really the first step in being able to make a shift. So I also think it's really important to believe in yourself, that even though you may be used to doing life in a certain way, it's always possible to try something new in any moment. So I would say first step is pause this podcast, or at the end, just see what it's like to take 3 conscious breaths, really feeling the sensations of the breath moving in the body. Or maybe you'd like to stretch. That's another thing I do with people is I encourage them to just stretch with mindfulness and actually become aware of the sensations in the body, because we're often on autopilot and we are able to see how much happier the brain is when it's present. So going off into teaching mode, I would say there's so many free resources out there. Download Insight Timer. Ideally, we want to try 10 minutes a day to actually rewire the brain and nervous system. And if that feels overwhelming to you, try 1 minute a day. Having a system is really important. So I say that. And again, I've coached clients who are like, I am not into a routine. I don't want to do that. And so you can maybe, if this sounds appealing to you, breathe for 1 minute before you open or close your laptop. Or decide that when you go for your water break, you're going to check in with yourself and notice what thoughts, sensations, feelings are here. So there's all these micro moments that we can do it that build up. And then our lives are very different when we keep doing them. reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn. My website is Megan Whitney Coaching. I got a free nonprofit burnout prevention kit on there that actually has like a 12 days of peace meditation plan. So I know some folks, a barrier is not knowing which meditations to do. So I like to start folks off with 1 minute and then build up from there. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. Even if you've never met me before, I'd be delighted to chat with you and just learn more about your situation, because everybody's causes of burnout and stress are so different. So while I love offering quick tips and ideas and strategies, it really does come down to taking an individual approach.
I love that. And I love everything that we've talked about in this podcast. I am convicted, like I said, to incorporate some of more of these mindfulness tools that you have mentioned. And I would highly recommend going to follow Megan. Like I said in the beginning, she is a delight of a human, and you just feel a sense of calm in her presence. So I hope that you feel that listening to this, and just go follow her in all of her wisdom and check her out on Insight Timer. Thank you, Megan, for being here.
Thank you so much. This was a blast, Haley.
If you have valued these stories or learned something from what you've heard, please share this podcast episode or follow me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your support, and together we can build a better community and world.